All right, I just confirmed the Facebook friend request, Daniela.
Awesome. And I'm able to see it now.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't need 3 phones and a laptop right now. I need to manage everything. I'll put this one on Do Not Disturb. Okay, done.
Awesome. So good morning. I want to first thank Howie for just putting aside some of the time and also reaching out to us to help out during this pandemic, being able to have a voice like Howie's, to represent small business owners, help out with the marketing messaging and with their branding in this time is really essential for them to stay relevant. So I want to thank him for always being available to our audience and to small business owners out there. So Howie, if you want to start with who you are, I know a lot of people already know you, but maybe give us a background of like who you are, what you're doing right now, and how have you adapted your operations in this COVID-19 situation.
All right. Well, that one question is going to take up the full hour. So here we go. Now, I'm going to make it brief. So here's my history of being in business now for almost 3 decades in about 3 minutes. I studied marketing and finance and graduated from the University of Texas at Austin Business School. And I went to work for Procter & Gamble. I spent a year there. And then I worked for an international advertising agency for 2 years. And at the ripe age of about 24 and a half, 25, I knew everything. So I decided to start a marketing business. And thank God I didn't know what I thought I knew. And I started a business that ended up growing pretty quickly and pretty large. We ended up with multiple employees, clients all over the country. I was at one point traveling about 200 days a year for business. And then I took an opportunity to go work for one of my clients and one of my mentors in an agricultural chemical company. And then from there, I started traveling around the world. I spent 3 years there in the mid 90s as the global sales manager for this ag chem company. And I decided that, although financially I was doing very well in that business, I missed my previous life of being local in one city, working on nonprofits. I've been involved with nonprofits for 35 years and living a simpler life, if that is even such a thing. And so I put in a 1-year notice that I was leaving that chemical company. And I moved back to San Antonio. I was living in Houston, but traveling around the world for that chemical company. I moved back to San Antonio and I restarted my advertising agency. And I did it in a very different way. I did it in a way that reflected back on my early days of spending a good amount of time on my nonprofit and depositing into my spiritual bank account, as well as in my business life and depositing into my business account. And lo and behold, because of all the experiences I've had and having worked for this big chemical company and working internationally with some major companies, I took on an approach of treating local clients in my ad agency like national brands. And I helped them grow their brands. Some of the companies that I've worked with for more than 10 years are companies like Wash Tub. I've done work for Methodist Hospital. I've done work for the city of San Antonio Metro Health, and for a lot of smaller companies that are one-offs, law firms, veterinary clinics. I did a lot of stuff for South Texas Radiology, Strict, and a lot of my clients were either already friends or became friends as a result of being my client. And now, I look back over 30 years of marketing and advertising and a few other businesses that I've been a partner in, a meal prep company, a video production company, a moving and storage company, all kinds of other stuff. And I've worked for or done work with about 1,500 clients over 30 years. And I've learned a lot from them. I still learn a lot from them. And just in the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to speak with at least 200 clients of mine to find out how this is impacting them, how they're adapting and transforming their businesses because of the pandemic. And not everybody, by the way, is transforming their business. I mean, I have clients and I have friends that are, burying their head in the sand and taking a wait and see approach and see what happens when the economy reopens. So a lot has definitely changed. I continue to do my nonprofit stuff. I was talking with Thomas earlier before we went online, and he's helped me at Got You Covered, which is the collection drive I've been doing now for 24 years. And I told him, in this time, I had an opportunity with some of my clients who have restaurants like Max and Lou's New York Diner and Augie's Barbecue to take food that they have, extra food, and take it to people homeless on the streets. And then with my friend Carlos Ayala, who's watching now, who got some big food donations through another nonprofit and needed help placing them. We got some of that, van loads full of food, to Battered Women and Children's Shelter, to Sam Ministries, transitional housing on Blanco Road, and then also to Haven for Hope. And we dropped off food there. So we although the pandemic has changed the way we do business and how we live our lives and how we go shopping and who we hang out with, it really hasn't changed anything. We're still who we are. We still have to be true to what got us to this point and find those things that we used to do before and just find a new way of doing them. But we haven't changed. We still have a need to maintain our health. We still have a need to maintain our families. We still have a need to maintain just the rules of the game have changed. But the game is in essence the same. We still have the same amount of time, hopefully, to be on earth and to make a difference. And so we have to take advantage of these opportunities. So I hope that was 90 seconds.
Yes, that was a great intro to the topic that we want to cover today. And I guess going back to, was like 3 weeks ago that we initially spoke for you to be here with us today. It was the importance of messaging, the importance of kind of pivoting your marketing. You mentioned like the same ads and the same emails or social media posts that you were sending are not going to resonate with the audience today. So what are you telling your clients that they should take into consideration in the climate that we live in today?
Yeah, great. So I'll repeat the question in case the Facebook Live people can't hear it. I don't know if they can or not, but really, since I'm in advertising and marketing, how am I recommending to my clients to do their messaging? So one is, what you used to do and what you used to message is probably not resonating right now. So if you do, for example, there's a big shoe retailer that is national, has offices or has stores here in San Antonio, and I'm signed up to receive their alerts. Okay, they're not my clients. I'm not going to bash them by name, but I'm getting the same messaging that I got from them pre-COVID-19, which is buy one pair of shoes, get a second pair at 50% off. Now the retail store may not be open, but you can do that online. Well, that's a lot of the same noise I heard before. And so I've been unsubscribing from retailers that have been sending me the same garbage that they were sending me prior to coronavirus pandemic. And the reason is because that is not appealing to me right now. Now, if somebody else reaches out to me and says that for every pair of shoes that I buy online, they're going to donate a pair of shoes to a worthwhile nonprofit that needs it, whether it's domestic or overseas, then I'm more likely to react to that, because then they're empowering me to be helping people that are somewhere else that I won't ever get to know or wouldn't be able to buy them a pair of shoes and give it to them, but they're taking care of that. Well, that appeals to me now. It's very different. If a restaurant here in San Antonio is posting that they're serving 300 meals to customers on a to-go basis, but for every meal they serve or every 10 meals they sell, they're preparing one for a shelter and they're delivering it. So they're doing 30 meals every time they sell 300 meals. Then I'm going to be more likely to want to support that restaurant because they're supporting the community. And I know that I have a small part in what I'm doing by buying food from them, in helping them serve the greater community when I may not want to be at home making sandwiches and going out and delivering them. which, by the way, I'm doing because I like doing that. But I know not everybody is going to be empowered to be able to do that, or in a position to, or afraid to, or whatever. And my wife already posted and said, hey, get home and be safe and stop doing all this, crazy stuff out on the streets. But anyway, nevertheless, messaging has to completely change. If we think that business is going to come back just as easily as it went away, based on the same messaging, I think we're all in for a big surprise. So we all have to reinvent ourselves right now in our businesses, because it's highly, highly unlikely that everything is going to get back to the way it was that as quickly. This is I'm not calling this a recession, a depression, a pandemic. What this is this is the Great Reset. This is the Great Reset. This was done on purpose to keep people safe from the virus. So this was a recession, depression, reduction in business that is man-made. It was turned off in order to protect people's health, but it's giving us. It's been going on long enough that it's giving business owners, entrepreneurs, time to think and process as to whether or not all of these things that we've been doing in the past, how we've been wasting money, how we've had, big offices with fountains and nice big parties and whatever else, if we really need all that stuff. Do we need all the staff? Do we need all the computers? Do we need all the office space? Do we need all these things? The answer might be yes in some cases, but in other cases it might be no. We've had more of our clients pause business or cancel projects that were time sensitive, like we do a lot of stuff for Fiesta. Those were either canceled or postponed to the fall, depending on if those events are going to take place in the fall. But we've had more of those than we've had new business. But we have concentrated on new business, and we found 3 clients that didn't know we existed, but they found us through our messaging on social media and other forms of marketing. And they've hired us because we have a compelling message on how they can use and leverage marketing at this time to gain and pass up their competition, who might be having their head buried in the sand or struggling to pay for their overhead, while these people are a lot more nimble and a lot more aggressive and have an opportunity to gain on their competition. So I was talking to one of my clients, Louis Garcia from AAA Garcia Bonds, and he was telling me that through search engine optimization that we're doing for him, people are finding him instead of their competitors who have their doors locked downtown to issue bonds. And so people go and avail bonds. And so people are either showing up at some of these other locations, the doors are locked, or they're saying call for an appointment. And then these people want immediate support. So they look up somebody, they find Louis, they call him, and Louis says, hey, my office is open, I'm 3 blocks away, just come on over right now and we'll take care of you. So here's an opportunity to gain new clients that you might not have ordinarily picked up because they were already locked into another vendor. I'm doing the same thing. Over the past 30 years of marketing, I've worked with about 250 vendors. I would tell you about more than half of them are closed right now. And the few that are open, we're still supporting and doing stuff with them. But I've talked to some vendors that have zero business. And I asked them, I said, so are you guys out doing anything to try and get more clients? They said, no, we just decided to close our doors for now and wait and see what happens. Well, that's no surprise they have no business because they're not open to try to get business. So anyway, a lot is changing. There's no way to predict what's going to happen. All I can tell you is we have a unique opportunity right now to look for other kinds of business avenues, revenues, vendors, relationships, prospects that we didn't have prior to this pandemic, or this, great reset, as I call it.
Yeah, I like that. The Great Reset, as you mentioned, is man-made, and a lot of people see businesses closing down, and they see I should do the same. So how have you been advising your clients, and what can you advise for businesses to look into innovating, to including new practices of selling or even messaging to their clients? A lot of businesses are not used to being on social media or utilizing online kind of platforms to communicate to the clients. So what are some tools, or what are some strategies that they can start by saying like, okay, if I don't sell online, how can I get there? Or if I don't usually use social media, how can I start engaging my clients through social media and other tools that you think are beneficial at
Right.
this time?
Okay, Danielle, great question. So the question is, in case Facebook out there didn't hear it, because we're on Google Meet, is how am I advising my clients at Sharkmatic Advertising to message to prospects and clients and to gain new business, especially for those that are not on social media, that are not used to being there. It's not necessarily a great time to launch your social media presence, but let's say if a business owner is on LinkedIn, I would start looking for more business connections there. I would use this time to start a Facebook business page and to go out and start liking businesses and vendors and clients and prospects that you want to do business with, and do that first. So in other words, lead with serving others first. Go out and connect with them and support what they're doing. It doesn't mean go spend all your money there. It just means connect with them, message, compliment them, learn more about what they do on social media, follow them, and they'll reciprocate and they'll come back. And then I don't know if the viewers out there know what this is, but this is called a telephone, okay? And I know they look different nowadays, but let me tell you what a lot of people don't do, including a lot of my millennials that work at Sharkmatic, but although I've trained them out of it over the last few years, and so I'll bash them a little bit. They want to send out emails. They want to send out messages. They want to mark things as completed on a Google Smart Sheet, and then have the client see it, or on a or on the program called Smart Sheets, or send things through Slack and communicate with other people to let them know something. But you know what? Pick up the phone and call. When I said earlier that I've spoken with about 200 plus clients, maybe 250 clients, I picked up the phone and I called them. What else did I do? I drove over to Gill's Tire and Wheel. I drove over to CarX. I drove over to some of my other clients' offices and locations. I went and I looked to see how they're doing in terms of business. I went up to Cooper's Barbecue up in New Braunfels and bought food and brought it back. So I want to see what's happening out there, because one thing is what people will tell you. Another thing is what's really happening. And then a third thing is what you see and perceive is happening. So the pandemic, there is no doubt that COVID-19 is affecting people physically. People are getting sick. I'm super grateful right now that my friend Jared Diamond, and I'm not releasing any kind of medical information or anything, but because he put it, they put it all over Facebook, that he not only contracted it, but then beat this coronavirus. He was in a hospital for well over 20 days. He was on a ventilator. He was in a medically induced coma, and he's home now. So, and he's a retailer. He's a client of mine. They own National Outdoors, and they, I know that this pandemic is affecting people physically, health-wise, but the people that are fortunate enough to not have contracted it, okay, are we bringing the pandemic into our businesses voluntarily? Are we bringing it into our brains voluntarily? And I think a lot of people are doing that. And we do that by watching news 24/7, by listening to stuff, by looking at the stats, by looking at the numbers, by regurgitating them and messaging them out to each other and talking about how bad it really is. There's no doubt that we all understand how bad this is medically, okay? Now it's become bad for a lot of businesses that have to shut down, or that haven't figured out a way to make some kind of income or stay in their clients' eye or mind or prospects' minds by messaging and going out there and communicating something. But once this pandemic gets into our brains, and it's the first thing we think about when we wake up in the morning, and it affects every one of our actions, like, wiping down our own door handles in our own house when we've had nobody from the outside coming in, then we've lost. we've really lost, because once we let it into our brains and once we let it into our business and we become depressed and our business is not making good decisions because of the pandemic, because of this virus, then really we've thrown in the towel. And it's way, way, way too early for most businesses to throw in the towel. There are still 300 plus million people living in the United States. Yes, a few have passed away, more than a few, thousands, but by percentage of the overall population, we still have a lot of consumers that are going to want to buy stuff, and they're going to buy stuff. They might not be buying as much stuff, and some people may not be buying at all, but some people are still buying some things, and there'll be more people buying more things as soon as they catch up to this economy. Remember, 5 or 10% of the people are innovators. Most people are in the middle and they're following behind, and then you have the laggards way at the end. So this big wave of consumers that are still trying to figure out Zoom, still trying to figure out Facebook Live, still trying to figure out all this stuff, will eventually figure it out, will eventually buy more things online, will eventually want to support more retailers as they come online. But whoever opens up first or communicates first, even if they're not physically open, but are still made look, Big Dan, Daniel Haas, he owns Big Dan's Furniture. The one thing that's helping him right now is that he had a lot of inventory. So while his showroom isn't open, he's still selling online, even though his website is not e-commerce necessarily. They're taking orders based on all the things they're showing on their website, and then he's able to deliver it safely with masks and gloves and putting the things over and whatever at their house and still collecting. So what's helping him, at least, although it's not as good as being open and having a showroom open with a lot of people shopping there, but he's able to continue to message. He's able to sell the inventory he has. He's working on getting more inventory. So there are people that feel like they have to continue to hustle during this time. Plus, it's not a bad idea to stay busy doing something. And even if there is really nothing for you to do in your business, which I find hard to believe because everybody has something to do in their business, even when their business is closed, then keep occupied in some way, shape, or form. Help a nonprofit, make food, make deliveries, go and make small donations, put stuff online. I have friends that are musicians. My buddy Ed Morales, I was talking to him. We're going to do an online concert, and all the proceeds are going to go to the San Antonio Food Bank. So people are going to make donations while they're watching the show. So a lot of things to do, much more so than just bury your head in the sand. But pick up the phone, start calling people, call vendors, call clients, call people you haven't called in years, find out how they're doing, see if there's anything you can help them with. Can you give them some advice? I did that with Javier Perez. He's not a client of mine, but he called me and I gave him some pointers and I worked on some things with him to help his insurance business. So there you go.
Yes, thank you. And I want to open it up, like anybody who has questions, they can also post them in the chat. And I can read them off to Howie. That way we have a fluid conversation and we're getting more a good feedback from you guys. And
yes. And I want to hear legitimate questions. I don't want like, oh, you need Botox up here. Look at all your lines. None of that stuff. Come on, let's go. Let's keep it clean. Let's talk about this.
And I wanted to add, like you mentioned, like how people are used to maybe relying so much on the team or like the office, what you already have in the office. So how are you managing your employees out of your home? What are some practices that people can put in place to make sure that the team stays motivated, that they keep it in constant communication? How are you doing it? And what do you suggest small businesses do to, even with not employees, but contractors or vendors, like you mentioned, right, just talking to them? So what are you doing and what do you suggest other businesses do?
Yeah, so, I talked about this bell curve thing. I'm actually a laggard when it comes to technology stuff. I kind of want other people to figure it out first and then prove to me that it works. So I've had, Palm Pilots, and I've had the Motorola flip phone back in the day, the little clamshell one, but I always buy those things late. I always, after they're on their third or fourth version. Then I was with an early version of a Google phone, and then I had an iPhone, and then I went to Android, and I always wait till the new model comes out for a while, and then I get one. But I'm the same way with technology in our office. So one of my clients, 210 IT, Marlon Gutierrez and Joseph Friedman, they installed some digital phones just last year. You would think like, oh my God, you should have had digital phones from 5-10 years ago. My buddy Glenn Levy was showing me his digital phones 10 years ago. He's got a law firm and he's a client of Sharkmatic. But anyway, and I was like, well, I don't know about this whole digital phone thing. I'm still old school. I want a hardwire phone because in case the electricity goes out, I want to be able to make phone calls. Well, really, if the electricity's out, we can't use the computers. We don't have lights. We don't have air conditioning. I doubt I'm going to be making phone calls from my landlines. But anyway, so I got onto digital phones. I come to find out after this pandemic hits and on the day we're sending everybody home, about a month ago to work from home, that the digital phones actually have an app that you can download onto your phone that clients, that clients can dial your office number. Instead of ringing your cell phone, it rings the app on the cell phone. Everybody in my office has the chance to look at the caller ID, answer it if they recognize that it's one of the clients that they work with, and then if they needed to talk to accounting, for example, then they transfer the call to Juan, who does our accounting, and then he takes it from his house, and then he can handle whatever it is. And then everybody's remoted into the computers at the office. The computer at the office, Wayne Ellsbury from Wayne's Tech World had helped me about 2 years ago have all our files uploaded and saved and backed up on the web. And so we can access the computers at the office. The web cloud service is taking all the files that we're updating from home, and they're backing those up to the web as well. And then once a week, I go to the office, or Jordan from office goes to the office and swaps out an external hard drive. And then he keeps one, I keep one, we connect another one. And so we had to learn pretty quickly what a lot of this technology could already do and has been able to do for a few years. But again, you figure this stuff out by looking at it, by reading it, by talking to your vendors, by having your vendors explain to you all the features. You're not going to learn it all yourself. Look, the likelihood of you figuring out how to build your own website and how to do your own social media and how to do your own messaging and branding. My friend Jeff Goldblatt from Jeff's Journeys, he's an expert at messaging. Okay, he's been a newscaster, or was a newscaster for decades. He was nationally on Fox News, internationally. He was in Israel when they were shooting Scuds into Israel, covering for Fox News. He's a 3-time Emmy Award-winning reporter. He was a news anchor in Chicago, the lead news anchor here at Cannes. He's an expert at messaging. I don't care how many YouTube videos I watch on messaging, I will never be as good of a storyteller as he is. So you want to hire people like that right now that can help you craft your message and put it out there, because it has to resonate and it has to be different than what everybody else is doing. And for sure, it has to be different than what you were doing prior to COVID-19.
Yes, and I think like from that aspect, at this time is essential to be looking at your team. So what do you think are like the new roles in a company that are going to be essential moving forward? I feel like a lot of the practices of social media or communicating online or making sure that your team is able to work from home moving forward are here to stay. Like, it's not like if we go back to the office, we're not going to still invest in some of these aspects. So what do you think are some of the roles that are essential moving forward?
Right. So, what's going to happen after this about getting back, and are people going to want to get back? I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. I certainly have no crystal ball, and I have no earthly idea what's going to happen. All I know is that I can control what I can control right now. And if I can continue to pay my clients, my vendors, which I have been, and I paid my rent in full, and I paid my vendors in full, and I'm not using this as an excuse to not pay people, staff included, whether or not I decide to apply for PPP or not, I'm operating as though there is nothing available to me right now in terms of support. And I and my team have to figure this out with our clients and with our vendors. And we do that primarily through communication. So I check in with my staff almost every day, and we still do our weekly staff meetings. We still have our Motivational Monday. We still look for ways to inspire each other. and lines of communication are open. I think most people are not using those opportunities. But now what's going to happen? So my uncle Moy Laredo has retail stores. He closed down all his retail stores. He let go of all his non-essential employees, which is pretty much everybody except a couple of people that they're doing a few things at, at the store and trying to sell some things wholesale and internationally. And he told me that some of his employees are making more money with unemployment than they were making working in the store because of the additional subsidies or whatever that the government's providing. So what's going to happen with those people? I would assume that they might want to stay home and drag out the unemployment as long as possible, even though there might be a job for them once the stores reopen. And that is maybe human nature. I would tell you right now, the time to think differently is upon us. And I think you act more as a contrarian than a follower. I think a lot of people go out and buy toilet paper and wipes and all kinds of things that they never worried about before and never needed before. Well, everybody needs toilet paper, but that's not my point. My point is that people are buying a lot of things that other people are buying because they have a follower mentality. And so the follower mentality, and I see the posts all the time on social media, is one, that there'll be a lot of babies born 9 months from this past March, and that everybody is going to be heavier and more out of shape in 2 or 3 months, or that this summer, what people are going to look like. And so there's a lot of memes and stuff like that and posts and all that. But is that really the case? That might be the case from all the people that are following everybody else's example. And that's one thing that I'm disappointed in when I talk to some clients and some friends that are in business, is that they're following this same mentality. Employees are the same way. A lot of them are following the same mentality because there is that saying, misery loves company. And so because everybody's in the same boat and 95% of the world is suffering right now, everybody feels like, well, you know what? This is a good time to suffer also, since everybody else is suffering. So I'm going to eat Cheetos and watch Judge Judy or the news all day long. And I'm going to suspend my exercise, and I'm going to suspend this, and I'm going to suspend that. And let's just wait and see what happens. A big mistake, in my opinion. Right now, my recommendation to employees, entrepreneurs, anybody out there that has any, that has any reason to be alive 30, 60, 90 days, a year from now, should be a contrarian and do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. Go out, double up on your exercise. My buddy and ex-business partner and current CPA, Jonathan Badger, is doing something 75 challenge, where for 75 days he works out twice a day, eats healthy, no sugar, no this, no that, for 75 days or whatever it is, 72 days or whatever it is. But anyway, and I asked him about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, how things were going. And he says, great. He says, 25 days, I'm down like 20 pounds. He goes, I'm catching up to you. I said, man, you're probably going to pass me up. Anyway, so here's the thing. Here's an opportunity that we've been given during this great pause, this great reset, to go out and be completely different. I guarantee you, he's a contrarian. Most people are not doing what he's doing. And this is the time to do that. That's why we're evaluating every aspect of Sharkmatic right now. We're looking at everything. We're doing server audits. We're cleaning up files. We're looking at vendors. We're looking at relationships. We're looking at who took care of us. We're looking at how we can take care of our clients. We're looking at which clients have been loyal to us, which ones have continued to pay us so we can continue to pay our bills 100%. And we're thinking about all that. What you do right now during this pandemic, during this big great reset, how you act says more about you than any slogan or tagline you put on your website or on your business card. And this is a conversation every single one of us can have with ourselves. Are we doing the right thing? Are we proud of what we're doing? Because we will look back after this. It might be 90 days from now. It might be this fall. It might be next year. But we're going to look back on this time and we're going to have two choices. We're either going to feel proud of what we did and how we acted and how we responded and how we stepped up during this time, or we're going to look back and we're going to feel ashamed. And even if other people don't see it, we know it. And if it's, like I said earlier, if it's in our head, then, the game's over. We've thrown in the towel. Because, a lot of people talk about positivity and, I'm going to be positive and all. And it was great. It was easy to be positive when the economy was kicking ass 6 months ago. Stock market was through the roof, highest point in history. Businesses are opening, mobile dog grooming services, all kinds of like delivery apps for all kinds of stuff, people doing high-end stuff, restaurants opening up in San Antonio at a faster rate than they did in the previous 30 years combined. All this stuff is happening, and it was very easy to be positive. So right now, I'm not even talking about positivity. You can wake up and lie to yourself and tell you that the world is great and business is great and there's tons of opportunities. And then when you look around and you see your bank account dwindling and, clients not paying you and vendors shut down and all this other stuff, well, then you're not going to feel very positive. What I'm telling you is you should be hopeful. You cannot lose hope. I meditate every day with a friend of mine who was a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. His name is Sichan Sit. And so he lives here in San Antonio. He's retired. He and I would get together almost every day and meditate together. And then now we do it online to be safe. And he told me, he said, there could be no success without serving others, number one. Number two, when he left Cambodia, his family was wiped out in the killing fields of Cambodia. He was the only one to escape from Cambodia. And his mother gave him a bag of rice, $2, and a handkerchief, and said to him, never give up hope. He escaped from a logging truck, fell into a Ponzi trap. He was impaled. He crawled out and made his way to Thailand, where he was imprisoned in a refugee camp. He became a monk in the refugee camp. And after he was wiped out, he's teaching kids how to speak English in this camp. He ends up making it to the United States. He picked apples in upstate New York, and he eventually drove a cab, and he flipped burgers, and then he drove a cab in Manhattan to pay his way through Columbia University, where he graduated with honors, eventually went to work as an aide in the White House, and 10 years later, he's appointed U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Folks, how on earth would you give up hope right now? That's another way of letting that thing get in your head, and you've thrown in the towel. You cannot. I'm not telling you be positive and happy-go-lucky and pretend like nothing's going on. I'm telling you, don't give up hope. Don't give up hope for your business. Don't give up hope in your personal life, because somehow most of us will get through this. Now, not all businesses are going to survive. I'm a realist. I think a lot of businesses that already had to mix two metaphors, as my friend Garth pointed out to me the other day, for all those businesses that already had one foot in the grave, this pandemic is the proverbial nail in the coffin. That's it. This is putting an end to that. What percentage of businesses are going to fail during this time? Who knows? If they were already 25% that were in trouble, it might be 35% of all businesses aren't going to be made. But what's the good news for those people that are hopeful, that had some savings, that are going to persevere during this time, no matter what, make whatever adjustments need to be made, and are going to survive this? What's the good news for them is, hey, you have 1/3 less competitors. There's 1/3 less noise on Facebook. There's 1/3 less noise on emails. There's 1/3 less noise on direct mail. So there are businesses that are going to survive, and more likely than not, and this has been my experience. Look, I've been in business for 30 years. So Y2K, 9/11, internet bubble burst, 2008, all these other things that I've been through. There was an AIDS thing back in the 80s that affected business. There was all kinds of things that affected business in the past. Is almost always the ones that survive those tough times end up doing better, because they have perseverance, because they have less competitors, because they've messaged correctly, because they've been around to the tough times, because they've seen a thing or two. For a lot of reasons, they tend to do better. So there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful. So I'm telling you what Sichan's mom told him: never give up hope.
Thank you, Howie. I think that gives a lot of hope, your words and inspiration for businesses to move forward. And I think it's resonating because in the past, with the fresh perspectives, other mentors have said the same thing, being like, hey, I didn't know like one coffee shop, like they wanted to start selling coffee, and it pushed them to start doing that, like that operation. So I think there's a lot of businesses that have been pushed to innovate, to start something new. So it's a good time to take opportunities. Like you say, you're working on things that maybe you quote unquote don't have time for on like back before March, like you didn't have time to do that, but now you're focusing on those stuff that's limiting you to grow, and maybe a lot of business are being pushed to innovate, to grow. And I want to again open it up for questions. I know I see Sylvia on Facebook says I'm making masks. That's great. I love how people start innovating either for help or for their business. And then I don't know if anybody else has a question they want to post. If not, I'll continue with my questions.
Well, look, I'll tell you, I see, like, for example, Abe Juarez just posted, okay, más mejor, on point. Here's a guy that is used to pivoting. So he has reinvented his businesses during good times and during bad times, because he's been around for a long time. And so while I know this pandemic affected his businesses materially, dollar-wise, he is able to pivot with his Airbnbs and use them for short-term medical rentals and other things to start getting business back, because the tourism rental business disappeared because nobody can travel, wants to travel, etc. So you pivot. I was talking to one of my vendors, Ricardo Vigil, the other day. He owns a print shop, and he owns a shop that does commercial window coverings and other stuff. So I asked him, I called him out of the blue because, again, he's a vendor of mine, and I haven't had much business for him here in the last 30 days. And he says, oh no, he goes, those two businesses, I completely shut the doors right now because I have no orders coming in. I said, so what are you doing? And he says, well, he says, I offered to my clients that I do commercial window coverings for, I offered them cleaning services. So I bought a lot of cleaning equipment and disinfecting equipment. And we've been going and cleaning offices while they're empty. And I've been able to employ not only my employees, but I've even hired additional people to help me clean. I go, dude, that's amazing. That's an awesome way to pivot. He goes, oh yeah. He says, actually, it turns out to be, it was something that, a business that my dad used to do a long time ago, and he passed away years ago and left me the business, and I never did anything with it. And now all of a sudden I'm getting business from that. Not only that, he said one of the clients owns a 2-story building, and because it's completely empty right now, not only did they have us clean it, they asked me if I knew anybody that can paint the interior. And he says, well, I can do it. He goes, because I do interior, so I can paint it. So now they have a painting contract for a 2-story building. And so now he's turning that into another business. So he went from 2 businesses that he was operating and making a living on over the past 25 years to 0 revenue in those businesses, to 2 businesses that didn't exist materially. He didn't make money at them. He wasn't operating them. They were defunct or gone up until February. And then he turned them on in March. And now all of a sudden, and he started picking up clients, nobody that he knew. He picked up the phone from past clients and started calling and introducing himself. And now he's got business there. So again, the time is to pivot, and you're not, well, I guess you are reacting, but you're reacting and then stepping up and reinventing yourself. And so anyway, I know that wasn't a question for me, but I saw him online. So there he is. So I see Bill Neville watching, Juan Savignon, who is a friend of mine from 40 years ago, lives in Monterrey. Bill, okay, we will be hanging out, blah, 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 but we need to talk. Okay, good. So
yeah, and Thomas added a question to the Google chat, also saying how like businesses have repurposed some of their facilities, like the Friendly Spot, prepping meals to feed hundreds of Corazon ministries and other people that are trying to repurpose their facilities to help out other businesses or to help the community. Yeah. And I think you were mentioning that how the messaging and people will want to help you if you're helping others. So I think this is a great time as a community to come together. And a lot of businesses are doing that and proving strong. But I think a more, like, I guess, hard question would be, what happens when you can't sell and you really have to close, like those businesses that were already doing wrong? Like, how can you make those hard decisions when you're in the red, and it's better just to close down and look for new opportunities? Have you spoken to any clients that need to do this, and what do you suggest for those businesses that really need to close down, or are putting their personal finance in risk by continuing their business?
Yeah, so in retail, and I grew up in retail in Laredo. That's where I cut my teeth in business, was in retail when I was in single digit age. I learned a long time ago, your first markdown is your best markdown. So in retail, you don't take leftover jackets from last year, and spring is coming and the temperatures are at 80 degrees, and you know you're not going to sell jackets, and then price them and discount them by 5% or 10% and sell maybe one or two jackets. Your first markdown is your best markdown. So if you know spring is coming, the temperature is telling you that spring is coming, you still have 300 jackets left over from last year. You need to make room for the spring inventory, short sleeve shirts or whatever it is. Then you take a big markdown. I know it hurts, but you mark them down 50%. Why do you mark them down 50% or 60% or 75%? Because you want to wipe that stuff out. Presumably, if you're a good business person, you already made your profit from last year's sales or last winter's sales. And what you have left over needs to be moved out. So you take that markdown at 50%. It's the same thing in business. If you have a business that's been struggling and was struggling during, one of the best economies in recent history, prior to February of 2020, and it was struggling then chances are you're struggling a lot more now, and it's time to close it down. It's hard to close it down right now and lose money, but instead of pouring more money into it for the next 30, 60, 90 days and waiting to see how slow this economy comes back, the best you can hope for is that your business is going to come back to as bad as it was prior to the pandemic. So why on earth would you want to perpetuate it? Take your loss now, cut your deals right now, talk to your vendors right now, and then go from there. I see that my buddy from Austin, David Kahn, is texting and messaging. So I'm going to see, because he was telling me and he shared with me, he's a real estate developer, and he has thousands of tenants, both residential and commercial tenants that rent from him. And so I don't know if he posted anything on social media, but he texted me. So I'm going to see what he put up here. And he said, yeah, great reset. Death of the buy one, get one free. Pay my rent in full. Yeah. So again, are people going to pay their vendors? They should be paying their vendors. But the reality is that most people are not going to do what you think they should do, and they are not going to do what they know they should do, because more people are following along. David Kahn told me that he had, right out of the gate, in the first week of this happening, people were emailing him asking him for rate abatement for the rest of the year, that they want free rent for the rest of the year. On what basis? Nobody knows that this is going to last for the rest of the year. And yet these businesses still have their equipment there. They still have their computers there. Their computers are still operating there. So why on earth would he give them free rent for an entire year? So you want to negotiate something, negotiate something. Again, I understand the government stepping in, and everybody's trying to figure this out as we go along. But as my friend and mentor and trainer, Ernie Bernard, would say, let your conscience be your guide. Okay? Let your conscience be your guide. You know what you should be doing. You know what the right thing is. Don't use this as an opportunity to take advantage of other people. Can you take advantage on the short term? You can. But once again, all this stuff, whether you believe in karma or whatever it is you believe in, all this stuff is going to come back and bite you in the ass later. Because again, how you act right now, how you react, what you do, you're either going to be proud of or you're going to feel ashamed of it. And again, how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you're not going to step up right now, if you're not going to do the right thing right now by your vendors, by your clients, by your friends, by your family, by your community, by those less fortunate, then chances are when things are good, you're not going to do the right thing either, because you will have gotten away with things during this time and you took advantage of others and those kinds of things, and all that will come back and somehow bite you in the ass, even if you have to live by yourself. These are all the people, by the way, that I think are letting this coronavirus get into their brain. Once it gets into your brain, you've thrown in the towel, you may as well call it quits. Shut down your business, shut down your operation. These are people that are not going to be genuine, and clients and prospects and people you do business with, vendors, etc. All of them can tell who's genuine and who's not, who's legit and who's not. This is the time to prove it. Now, when things are good, anybody can spend money. When things are bad is when you look to see who's doing the right thing, who's stepping up. I'm not trying to win a Mother Teresa award, okay? But I'm telling you, I'm doing my best to do the right thing by my employees, by my clients, by my vendors, by my family, and by my community, and for myself and for my health, to exercise more, to eat a little healthier. Am I still having my meetings with Ben and Jerry's ice cream? Yes, I am. But you know what? Overall, I am doing and trying to continue to do the right thing. Take care of myself mentally, spiritually, emotionally. There's a lot of health out there outside of just physical health and financial health. Okay. So right in here, gratitude, those kinds of things. We all have a lot of things to be grateful for. As I'm going out and feeding homeless people, I think, what right do I have to complain about being confined to my home when there are people that don't have a home? What right do I have to complain that my business is down when there are people that don't have a business, that don't have a job? I talked to a friend of mine yesterday, worked for a big theme park, and they let go 90% of their employees, including him. And so, he's going to have to figure it out. So there are a lot of people, I get it, that are hurting, but that doesn't mean that every aspect of your business is hurting. Don't let one thing sort of compartmentalize, and don't let one thing seep into another, because once you start mixing all this negative emotion and it infiltrates our entire bodies and our entire businesses and our home life and all that stuff, then we're done. It's game over.
Thank you. I think that's completely true. I think a lot of people shut down, as you said, like watch TV, or feel like everyone's doing the same thing, so I should just stay home, watch TV, eat Cheetos, and just completely shut down. But this is a good time to also introspect and find ways to kind of grow in other aspects of your life that maybe you were too busy to do before. So, and even find a new routine, like you're staying in touch with your meditation, stuff that you were able to do outside, you can still do at home. There's new ways of doing it. So yes. I think that's very important. And I want to, like, we're cutting close to the time, so I want to see if you have any other insight for businesses that are out there trying to innovate, people who maybe have to still keep employees but are struggling with that, like seeing the horizon and be like, I don't know how much longer I will be able to hold on. So any other insights that you have for them?
Yeah, good. I love that. So anchoring into the future when you don't know where the destination is super important at this time. So I see Zach Sherman is waving on Facebook Live. So Zach Sherman works for a direct mail company, marriage mail company, and he gave us ads over the past few years for Gotcha Covered, which is the collection drive I've been doing for now 24 years that benefits Haven for Hope, Battered Women and Children's Shelter, and the San Antonio Food Bank. And he gives us ads in their publication, which are mailed to homes every month in San Antonio. So every month, 300,000 households or more, 500,000 households, I don't know how many households we have here, get these little magazines in the mail called, like marriage mail, or in the old days, before we got into the business, it was called junk mail, but now it's marriage mail. But online or digital couponing and printed coupons anyway into the home. Anyway, so he would give us ads to promote Got You Covered. So that is something that he might do. I don't know how his business is doing right now. I don't know how many people are mailing offers to the home. Hopefully there's still plenty of people, because I know there are businesses that are operating that still need to communicate with clients. And that's one great way of communicating, getting into your mailbox. But he might anchor to this coming fall, because I know he gets a lot of benefit and pleasure from helping promote this collection drive that benefits thousands of people here locally. So he might anchor to that point in the future, knowing that this coming December will have another collection drive, and that he, through his business, will be able to help promote that event. So what are some of the things that we have on the horizon that we can anchor to that's not in May? Because we don't know what's going to happen in May. Some schools are already canceled. We don't know where some kids are going to go back to school. Probably not. We don't know what's going to happen right now. But you know what? Why don't we anchor to this fall? Why don't we anchor to this December? Why don't we anchor to what we're going to do for summer vacation 2021 and start planning it? One thing that I'm being forced to do by my family is, since we're spending a lot of time at home, they're noticing things that need improvement, like all the furniture, like the TVs, like all these things that people want. So I said, you know what? Probably it is a good time to start looking at those things. So now we're putting together a plan of what kinds of things we'll be buying to remodel and redecorate. And as we start looking online, there's probably going to be a lot of good deals. I'm looking at some of my cars in the garage, and I think, okay, some of these are getting up there in miles, getting up there in years. What would I want to buy now? Well, I'm sure there's going to be deep discounts, and there already are on new cars, and there's going to be deep discounts on used cars because less people are going to be buying. And so I can support the economy by buying a nicer, newer car when the time is right in the next 30, 60 days. And I might give myself an anchor, by July 1st, I want to have my new blank car, or pre-owned, but with less miles than my current car, and those kinds of things. So again, anchor to some point in the future with something that you have to look forward to. Again, that's probably the definition of hope, is knowing or having a sense that things will be better at some point in the future, but get very specific with those goals and those dreams. My friend Winslow has an app called 1 Million Dreams, and so download that and start putting your dreams in there, and think about, put a time frame to it. There are certain things that all of us can accomplish, whether or not there's a pandemic out there, that can still be accomplished. So anchor those things in the future and work towards those. You're occupying your mind on something positive versus on wasting your time away worrying about things you can't control at this point.
Great. And for the last question for me is, so I don't know if you were prepared as a business for the pandemic, but we still, as Launch said, we still get a lot of requests of people want to start a business. So what do you think are some of the practices that people who are starting now a business to be prepared for scenarios like COVID or other crises that could come up in a business? So what do you think people can do?
Great closing question. So businesses that want to start right now, and at Launch say you guys are still getting requests from people that want to start businesses. Again, I said earlier about being a contrarian. This is a great time to start a business. And let me tell you why. Because if you could start a business right now, and you can grow it, and you can be successful, when things get good, you're going to rise with that wave. As the wave of business and revenues start to rise, you're going to be on top of that wave, on that crest of that wave. And so it's a great time to do it. Now, if you can find an opportunity for something that COVID-19 has created in the marketplace and service that need, then you're even better off than other businesses. Prime example, we just started work on a new client that didn't know we existed, didn't know Sharkmatic existed. Prior to this, they had been in business, puttering along for the last couple of years, but not really investing much into their business because they were doing it part-time and waiting to see what happens. And they sell pre-owned helicopters. They looked at this pandemic as a great opportunity to redesign their website, to do search engine optimization, to do messaging, and Jeff Goldblatt is going to be doing their messaging, doing videos, and getting out there and becoming the company that's known for selling pre-owned helicopters and some planes, fixed wing, but primarily helicopters. And so they've already paid us a deposit. We're already starting on their new website, on their new branding, and we'll be starting their search engine optimization. And they said this is a unique opportunity in time that we may not ever have in our lifetimes, where businesses that had helicopters and pilots and all kinds of stuff are having to cut back on expenses and sell this stuff. Just from the few clients that they had from before, they were getting more calls. So they looked at that as an opportunity to double down and ramp up on their business. So there are business opportunities. I can't tell you what they all are because I don't know them all, but you can look to see what the opportunities are based on what this pandemic has created. For those of you that were around during the savings and loan crisis, that goes down in history. That was in the 70s, I think, 70s or early 80s. I don't remember exactly, but it was the largest, one of the, if not the largest transfers of wealth in American history, because savings and loans collapsed and businesses, buildings were foreclosed on and had to be sold by the RTC to other people who actually had cash for pennies on the dollar. The largest transfer of wealth in history took place during a catastrophic financial event. This pandemic, even though the financial turmoil of the implications of the pandemic financially were man-made, because we closed down businesses to help people support them in being healthy. Regardless, is going to create a huge opportunity in business for most people. So look at that opportunity, find it, start a business doing that, market it, message it, get out there, build your network, build your contacts. Your network is your net worth. Build it now that you have time. Or watch CNN and Fox and MSNBC all day long, eat Cheetos, watch Judge Judy all day long, eat Ben and Jerry's, and bury your head in the sand. And then let's have this conversation. Why don't we have a follow-up Launch SA talk a year from now? And let's take some calls and some comments from people that both stepped it up and people that buried their head in the sand, and let's see where everybody is a year from now.
I think that's a great idea. We should set a date. What is it? April 17th? We'll see where we are.
April 17th, 2021. Let me check my schedule, make sure
we're open. But thank you so much. I want to thank you just for spending this time with us and providing insights. I know this session and this recording will give and provide perspective for a lot of people. A lot of businesses are kind of in just a blurry towards the future, towards what they should do, and hearing from other small business owners and other entrepreneurs, what are they doing, gives them a little bit more perspective and maybe insights on what they can do next. So I appreciate your time. I don't know if you have any final thoughts that you want to share. I know we're at 11:34, so
right.
Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, Daniela, Ryan, Launch SA, thank you all very much. Thank you for reaching out. This is awesome. Love it. I want to say hello to everybody out there, all the friends. Hey, phones work both ways. If I haven't called you yet, call me, because I'm going down my list of 8,700 people. I plan on calling everybody, at least those that'll take my call, or leaving a message for everybody. But reach out to me. Phones work both ways. Reach out to other people. Call other people. Let's connect. Let's do some stuff. Let's come up with cool ideas. Thomas, and I talked to my buddy Carlo from Keith's Arts Pools. They're a client of ours also. And he says, hey, Howie, what can I do right now? I said, hey, man, why don't we all pick a day and let's all go buy sandwich meat and bread and lettuce and tomatoes. And let's all make sandwiches at our houses. And then we'll put on some gloves, put on some masks, and everybody drives in their own cars. And we go out and drive around the city of San Antonio and find homeless or less fortunate individuals that we can give the food out to. And let's just do some random acts of kindness and let's do some neat things and reach out to me with some cool ideas and let me support you with your ideas. And let's get out there and let's start some kind of positive movement. Let's show the rest of the world that San Antonio is different, that we're caring, that we're compassionate, that we love our parties like Fiesta, but we also like helping the less fortunate. When I do Got You Covered, I get thousands of people come and donate tens of thousands of pounds of clothing and food and household items to donate to those less fortunate at Haven for Hope, Battered Women and Children Shelter, and the San Antonio Food Bank. So let's go out and continue that tradition. Let's do that right now. Let's do our part. Let's feel good about putting our head down on the pillow and saying, hey, you know, I fed 20 people today. I helped 30 individuals. I donated $100 to these different charities online. And, you know, and share it. You're not bragging. You're inspiring others to do more. And when you do more, you become more. Can't say it any better than that.
Thank you. I like that. I like that end note. So thank you, Howie. I'm going to end the recording right now.
All right. Thank you all for sticking around, watching, listening.